Bow, digga, 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 digga. Yeah, there's the thing. Hey, what's up? I'm Dash. This is all the way down, episode 32. Knox is here as well.
Hey, I'm Knox, and we couldn't afford the full budget this week. We only had to get the Dash singing in there.
So man, it's been a minute. I've got a million things to talk about. However, um, in the last couple days, a new thing came out that kind of pushed everything else that I've been wanting to talk about off to the wayside. And
Yeah.
that is that Elden Ring came out. How are you feeling on that?
Well, I'm not feeling too anything because I haven't played it or even planned to buy it or anything like that. But I will say, when I saw its announcement at what was it, E3, I think, it looked visually and stylistically the most attractive to me of a Souls game yet.
Yeah. Let's just start right there with the visuals. We're
Sure.
talking about Elden Ring. Here we go. So it is a beautiful, beautiful game. Like Souls games have always been, oh man, this game is like it's like the next FromSoft game. You know what I mean? Like
The next
ever
FromSoft.
yes, as in like ever since 2009 with Demon Souls, when FromSoft first like really started killing it with these titles, when Miyazaki started directing,
Mm.
and they've just been getting better, and one thing that the series has always been known for, especially starting with Dark Souls, really starting with Dark Souls, is that whole aspect of it sounds like a joke at first, the "see that mountain, you can go there" kinda thing, but,
Yeah.
like, in Dark Souls, it wasn't really that, it was Dark Souls, it was almost like the opposite. It wasn't really "see that mountain, you can go there." It was like, at some point, you'll look off a cliffside and be like, "Oh, shit, that's the castle I was just in." You know what I mean?
I like that
Um
feeling.
yeah, and there's a lot of those things where you see off in the distance, like, architecture that you recognize because you've already been there, and you're like, "Whoa," and then you start paying more attention, and you're like, "Hey, that big m mausoleum thing on the top of the cliff up there, I wonder when I'm gonna get there," and then you do later, and it's really cool. Um Elden Ring is like after the brief tutorial, you walk out into the world and you leave the cave you're in and it's like boom, open world and it's just like the most gorgeous landscape that they've done where just the color grading is really cool. It's like a very like green cliffy kind of area, but the trees have like orange leaves to them and look really cool. But then there's these huge yellow trees way off in the distance that are enormous. You know what I mean? And that's like the first thing that's going to catch your eye is this like giant godlike yellow tree, that is super, super cool. And then you start to look at the finer details. Oh shit, there's a castle there. There's another thing over here. I can see something over there. There's a badass knight riding a horse over there. Don't want to fuck with him. And then you walk over and like look off of a cliff, and there's a beach down there, but the beach has these like fucked up creatures on it, that are like crazy tentacle things with beaks, and you're like, whoa, right? And okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but like but yeah, like visually, just like taking in like the place that you're in,
Whoa.
it reminds me a lot of Breath of the Wild. Where Breath of the Wild actually did like the same exact thing, where you start out in a cave and you walk out the cave and you're on a cliff and it's like boom, here is the visual landscape. You know what I mean? Where
hmm
you're up on a plateau and you can see all these landmarks across the horizon, that are all places that you're going to go. And this game kind of does the same thing. Um, in fact, there's a lot of aspects of Elden Ring that I would say overall, like the one sentence pitch of the game is that it's Dark Souls mixed with Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the
In a
Wild. Oh, okay.
in a lot of ways. So yeah, if you're coming into Elden Ring and you don't really know anything about it, it's open world, more than the other ones are. Dark Souls games have always been open, as in like you're in this place and you can go multiple ways, except I've always described the Dark Souls world as like a web, you know,
Yeah,
where it's like the
it's like a
yeah.
hub world, you know.
It's like a web where there are several different locations and each of them connect to like 3 other ones, you know? And so to get from one place to another, you don't just run straight there. You kind of think about, well, this pathway goes to this place, and that place has a pathway here that goes to this place, and then that place has a pathway here that goes to the place I'm trying to get to, right?
Yeah.
And I love that about Dark Souls. It's genius. The thing that I love about that is the way that like that has always solved the open world problem to me of running straight at your objective in a field of nothingness is boring, you know? And so I always loved that in Dark Souls, it was more like a level that you played through to get there. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like having to go through each of the web strands brings you through a bunch of handcrafted, designed pathways with good enemy placement and all that kind of stuff. And so it was fun every time. Um, but Elden Ring now is doing the more spread out, wide open area thing, where you actually are just, you know, you have 360 degrees around you that you can run in any direction, right? From the start. Um, man, at first I was a bit worried about it because of, like I'm saying, the open world problem, you know, where like I didn't think that that's as compelling, but Breath of the Wild did it right, you know? That game did it right. That game did open world in a really cool way that I really enjoyed, and Elden Ring is doing the same thing, right? As in like,
Ho
man,
I was gonna say,
it's
how do you
almost
do open world right?
so let me first explain how you do open world wrong. Uh, so the thing that I can't stand in open world games is when you open your map and it's got a bunch of bullshit on it, you know? Icons and essentially just a bunch of fucking chores, right? Like, oh, there's an icon on your map here. What is that? I don't know. So I put my waypoint on it and I run straight at it and I get there and it's some dumb little piss easy objective that isn't really anything. And the game goes, "Good job, you did it," and now it's off your map, you know. And I'm like, "Oh, good, I got it off my map." So it feels like I'm just doing chores because I'm being pointed exactly to every single objective, and the only reason I'm doing it is just to clean the fucking map. It's not even to do the things. I'm not even excited about the things because I don't know what they are because I just am only going to them because there's a marker there. You know what I mean? And I find that very frustrating and boring,
Does this
right?
happen in Elden Ring?
No.
I was gonna say
Uh
because like like thinking like Skyrim, that would be like the clearest example to me. Where once you discover your thing, your map becomes kind of littered with points and shit because you actually went there.
yeah, the more specific games that I'm describing here are like Assassin's Creed, Horizon Zero Dawn, Far Cry, you know,
Yeah,
stuff like that. Mostly Ubisoft, you know, it's like the game that Ubisoft makes. But then yeah, there are some other like games that do a similar thing like Horizon.
yeah,
But yes, but then Breath of the Wild comes along, and now let's talk about how you do open world right. In Breath of the Wild, you don't get any markers on your map, but using your binoculars, you can place waypoints on your map. And so your goal is, or like the thing that you end up doing in that game is like you climb up on something high, which is funny because oh man, the game design philosophy is so good because it's like in Assassin's Creed, you climb up onto a tall thing and it reveals a bunch of objectives on your map for you.
hmm.
So it's like the game saying, "Good job, you climbed on something high." So your character spotted a bunch of stuff to do. Here it is on your map. You know what I mean? But in Breath of the Wild, it's actually you, the player, who decides to climb up on a tall thing because it's actually literally a good vantage point for you to
Yeah.
look around from.
I can see
And
that.
then you look around and you go, "Hey, that looks suspicious," with your binoculars, and you hit a button and it puts a little it puts a little waypoint on that spot that looks suspicious, right? And you might pick out 5 or 6 of them, right? "Oh, this looks suspicious, this looks suspicious, this looks suspicious," right? And you put down some waypoints, and then you go to those things to research them yourself because you were interested in them because there was something suspicious about it. You know what I mean? And that's, like, super adventurous and fun, right? So now Elden Ring is doing that style of open world, but with, like, Dark Souls combat, and holy shit, it's so good.
Is I was gonna say, I mean, like, isn't so I guess I'm not a big Breath of the Wild player, but I would say that was the most Dark Souls combat Zelda's ever been. But I guess you're saying it's even much more dissimilar.
Yeah, it's much more Soulsy feeling. I will say though that they got a bit more Sekiro in there than Dark Souls has had before, which is good. You know what I mean? It's like the natural progression, right? Um,
I've not played any
after
of these games, so
so after Dark Souls, there was Bloodborne, and Bloodborne went a little bit more action. You know, Dark Souls is a little slower, and Bloodborne is generally more fast and aggressive, right?
hmm
And then Sekiro was where they branched the most away from like an RPG where you choose your stat upgrades and you choose what kind of build you're going for and stuff. And Sekiro was very much like this is how the combat is, you know,
would you say
and
Sekiro's like difficulty is typically harder than a Souls game on average should be?
I think that all of these games handle difficulty so well that it becomes a weird thing to even discuss which one is more or less hard.
Oh,
You know
okay,
what I mean?
gotcha.
Like, yeah, like it's all just good the way
It's
it's done, you
what
know?
what things do you find hard rather?
Yeah, yeah. Like, if you ask anyone who which boss they thought was the hardest in Sekiro, you'll mostly get a different answer from everybody. Except for probably most people will name the last boss though as one of the hardest, and there you go. That is pretty good, you know, if that's the case. But yeah, so all right, I gotta stay on the rails here. It's gonna be difficult,
So
just
you were
like the
talking about
gameplay.
how it kind of goes with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, so let me just this is one of those games that is, like, so crazy how like, different, but okay, so let me just explain generally what's happened to me that made me really like the game so far. And this has to do with the way that it handles open world. So you get out in the open world, and me not knowing anything about it yet, I get out in the open world, and of course, just the way that I am, I go, "Uh oh, this is really open." This makes me kind of nervous that like if it's so open, it's gonna have the open world problems, right? So I'm like, I don't know if I like the idea that I can just go anywhere because I want to have a level to play through, you know. But I sit down at the first grace, that's what they call the bonfires in this one, and it has a
Grace. Okay.
thing where it points you in a certain direction. The bonfire essentially just like points you like, "Hey, I know that it's super open, but if you feel like going this way, this is where progress is," you know? And it's like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I was just like, "All right, I'm just gonna go that way," you know?
Strange
So I
that it tells
followed
you
it.
that.
Yeah, it just generally tells you like, "Hey, you know, this there go maybe this way." You know, they're not very specific about anything, right? With like these mechanics and stuff, but they're just, maybe that way.
But I'm
S-
thinking when the way you said that, I'm thinking about it in the context of a racing game where if you turn around the wrong way, immediately the game's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But
yeah.
in case it's just a suggestion, you could have more fun
Yeah.
that way. You never know.
Right, right. You turn around in Mario Kart and
Uh
Lakitu's like,
huh.
may like consider that you
Technically, it will be the first person the shell hits and not have to be a blue shell if I do it this way.
so I follow the way that the grace is pointing me, you know, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I fight some dudes, and it's really hard. Like it's I guess the one of the things that was really hard at first is that I always pick like the naked class, you know, in these games, where you have to find all your gear. You just start out with a club, you know. But in Dark Souls, you at least get a club and a shield, and this one you don't get the shield. So that was kind of tough to start with. But you know, I'm going. And I get to the next bonfire and like it points me in a direction and I go from there and a bunch of cool shit is happening, but like, man, the combat is hard and everything's kicking my ass. But I keep following the waypoints until eventually I get to what is the first like boss. Like this guy's a boss, right? There's a fog gate in front of him.
Is it kind
I
of like in
go in
Dark
there.
Souls where it's like, hey, test your metal in the first 5 seconds, and then do this?
Uh
It's like a big in
oh,
your face.
No, no, that guy killed me and it moved on. It did more the Demon Souls thing where you only get one chance at the guy that kills you,
Mm,
and then it moves on. Instead of Dark Souls where like you run away from the guy and then you come back and kill him and then you finish the tutorial, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But so I get to the first boss that like you're supposed to beat, right? And holy shit, he's just the hardest thing ever. I don't do any damage to him, and he kills me in like 2 hits, but like I beat my head against it for a little while, tried him a few times and I could get his health down like a third of the way, but like a third of the way he started a new phase that just like never fucking stops attacking and I couldn't handle it, and I was just like I was starting to think like, man, I'm finding this game a little hard to get into because, like, normally things are a little hard, but there's like a nice curve to the difficulty that that you're at least getting little bits of progress at a time that keeps you going. But this guy is just a straight up brick wall. And if I backtrack a little bit, it's like all of the enemies that were leading here are really fucking hard too. And they don't even give very much experience. So like I can't even really level up. And I'm sitting and at first I was kind of like, what's going on here? Like this is way too hard. And I feel like I just have no footing to even get started in this game. But then I'm like, okay, what if I just don't go the way that the grace points me? And I started actually adventuring around and in the last and this all happened on Friday, right when the game came out. Now over the last 2 days of playing the game constantly, I haven't even been back to that boss yet because there's so
There's so much
much
shit to
shit
do.
to do. Like the
There's
world
so much
like
shit.
yeah, it's like so it's almost like they actually it's like it's genius, right? At first I was like, I don't know about this game. I can't even get my footing, right? But now I'm like, actually this was genius because what they did was they pointed me right to something that was too hard where now I'm exploring around not just because I'm wandering around what's here and what's here, but I'm gearing up for something specific now. You know what I mean? Like now when I clear an objective and if I get when I find a little thing and I deal with it, right? Oh, I got some new equipment or I got enough experience to level up or whatever. All of that has context now. All of these little objectives that seem small and each one of them each like okay, so now I'm just wandering around and it's like, hey, there's some ruins over here. I'm gonna go check it out, right? Oh my god, there's this type of enemy here, and I found a chest that has this equipment in it or something, right? But that's all it is. Oh, cool. There were some dudes that I fought, and I found a little piece of equipment, right? And then I go to the next suspicious looking thing or thing that's on the map that's interesting. Holy shit, this happened, and I found this thing, right? And instead of this just being a bunch of random bullshit now that I'm going around the map finding and getting and going, okay, and then moving on, instead it all has context where I'm looking specifically for what is going to help me kill this boss. You know what I mean? And that has made that specific goal that they pointed me right towards. Now it makes all of this adventuring so fun. You know
So
what I
instant
mean?
wall of difficulty means you're instantly looking for the tools you need. Is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's funny about this is that this is actually exactly, once again, what Breath of the Wild did. In Breath of the Wild, when you start the game, you immediately, on your quest log, you get a quest that just says, kill the last boss, basically, or kill Ganon, you
Maybe
know?
that's why people speedrun that, because weren't people beating the game in 5 minutes?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's exactly like the thing about Breath of the Wild is that you can literally run straight to the castle and fight the last boss. It's just you're not going to be equipped to do that unless you know exactly what you're doing, which you won't the first time, right? And so, Breath of the Wild, the entire game, all of the adventuring you do is getting better gear and getting more abilities and doing all this stuff, and you always have this context of this is going to help me when I get to the castle, that I
Yeah.
was pointed at immediately. And so that's what Elden Ring is doing now, except I think on a smaller scale, right? The boss that I went to and couldn't beat, that's not the last boss. That's like probably the chapter 1 boss, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Um so okay, so that's I found that to be pretty profound though, the way that the game pointed me at something that I can't really do, and now that has made it so much more fun to do
Do you know
everything
what that kind of
else.
reminds me of? The way that they tell the story of God of War. Like when you're in the campaign, well, campaign mode. The only way to play God of War,
Mhm.
you're kind of just like they usually set up the scene to where like, holy shit, there's some gigantic fucking demigod over there wrecking shit. And then there's just little old you because the camera just pans right to you on like a cliffside, like looking at the action, and then you're kind of just analyzing. Okay, well that monster's over there. Looks like there's a pathway over there. There's a bridge over there I could take to swing from here to there. You see it on a macro level at first as an insurmountable goal, and then it forces you through the narrative of how to get your tools and figure out where to go through there. It sounds like it's kind of similar, but without the track, obviously.
Yeah, totally. And like that's the thing. Like, I feel like I often get into these like rants about games plots being uninteresting. And the reason that that's so important is because the player needs motivation, I
Yeah.
think, right? If there's no context to why you're doing the objectives in the game, then it makes them a lot less fun.
Oh my god.
Uh
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what instantly comes to mind when I think about that? Remember that fishing game I got, the real fishing game, Road Trip Adventure, that there for some reason was just anime protagonists in it,
Mhm.
and there was literally no reason for you to be interested in those characters whatsoever, and you could only play one of them, and like it was just fucking the most minimal basic human interaction needed to go from I'm on this road and there's a pond over there and I'm gonna fish in it. Like I hated every fucking minute of that game that there was dialogue, and I wanted to love it, but you can't get through a game like that. I didn't. I couldn't. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so I let's get a little bit more specific into like what it is you actually do in the game,
In
right?
Elden Ring.
Yes. It's kind of similar to Breath of the Wild. What ends up happening is you kind of spot something in the distance that you want to go check out, and then as you're running towards it, you just get distracted by every little thing around. And one thing that I'd like to kind of talk about is that Elden Ring has the best like atmosphere of any FromSoft game I've played. I don't
Oh, have you
know.
played Armored Core?
Well, not really. I had a demo of it when I was younger, so
Mm.
I didn't the atmosphere didn't
Do you remember which
necessarily
demo it
get to me.
was? Which game?
It was the first one for
Okay.
PS1.
Okay, then you might have had a worse experience. I started playing on the fourth one. I believe it was Armored Core 4 Another Age. It was called Another Age on PS2, and it was fucking badass.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd be interested to get into those at some point.
I'm very
Um,
excited that they're returning to that series. I was not expecting that at all. Like
oh yeah.
we haven't had a good mech combat thing in a while, and I don't even know that there was that many people clamoring for it. But damn it, we're about to get it.
Yeah, Armored Core 5 was on, like, PS3, I
3?
think, and
Yeah.
then there was also one called Armored Core 4 Answer, and I don't remember if that was before or after 5.
Uh,
Uh,
I'll get back to you on that.
sure, sure, but, well, I mean, it's tough to say because, like, I love the atmosphere of Bloodborne, right? Bloodborne has insanely good atmosphere as well, and,
Yeah.
maybe it's not quite there or something, but, it's really good, though. Let me just explain some stuff, right? So I'm running towards this interesting thing at one point, right, in
You
the
were
game.
correct, by the way. PS3 360 was the last one.
Yeah. Like let me give you an example of like something that happens. So I'm running through, like, the forest, there's some castle up on a cliff I wanna get to or something like that, right? And, there's this, like, spectral, candle stand in
Ooh.
the forest somewhere. It's like a ghostly candle stand. I'm like, "Oh, that's weird." So, I went up to it and, like, a ghost appeared that was walking away,
With
and
the
I was like, "Oh."
candle?
Not with it. It was just a ghost walking away, right?
No, you
And
didn't
I'm
see a
like,
floating
"Okay."
candle stand.
Right, and it's kinda dark, so I've got my torch out, a little bit, and that's the thing too, it's like at all times, right, I've got my sword in the right hand, and I've got my shield in the left hand, right, but then you can swap your hands, and so instead of a shield, I've also got a torch, right, so I can switch to the torch when it's dark, and, uh and eventually we clear out of the forest, and he walks, like, down the cliff and down onto this, like, little, like, ledge cliffside that is kinda tough to spot, but the ghost walked to it, right? And then it disappeared, but I followed the path down, and there was a cave at the end of it. I'm like, "Oh, shit, cave," right? And, it's a really good-looking cave, all the scenery, the rock walls and stuff look really good, and there's,
Love a
like,
good cave.
yeah, like skeletons and boxes and stuff laying around. And I'm like, all right, all right. So walk into the cave and there's a treasure chest. And I'm like, all right. So, I walk over to the treasure chest, but the ground busts open and it's a pitfall. Oh shit. So I fall. And I actually jumped. Like I was not expecting it at all. So I like
Mhm.
jumped in my seat a little bit when the ground broke. Character falls, lands on the ground, and there's a bunch of rats around, giant rats, and they're fighting me. And I'm like, fuck. So now I have to so now I've got a torch in my hand, right? So I'm trying to like fend off the rats with the sword while I'm also like fumbling to try to get the shield back out, because like they're hitting me, but I'm accidentally trying to block the hits with the torch because that's what's usually in my left hand, So I'm fuck God, and it's this horrible battle with these rats all of a sudden in this cave. And of course, when you put the torch away to get the shield out, now it's dark in there, and I'm fighting them in the dark, Oh, finally, okay, I take the torch back out and, uh and, uh and then with all the dead rats around, and I'm like, "Damn, dude." But all right. So, but now I need to figure out how to get out of this cave, right? Because I fell, right?
Yeah.
So the only place that I see to go is deeper, right? I find another hole, but it's got like ledges that you can jump down, And I'm like, okay, okay, well, the only way out is through, right? So like hop down the ledge onto the ledge, right? And I'm going down deeper and deeper until boom, now I land, and now there's like ankle deep water that I'm in, right?
A
So
lot of
I'm still in this
claustrophobia play here.
a little bit, but now it's like now I'm in this cave and there's water on the ground and it's wet, and I'm still got the torch out, right? That's the only source of light,
Mm.
and so I'm looking around the cave, sloshing through water now. And eventually I get to this big bear, right? And there's a bear down there, and the bear's got a health bar, and it's like, oh shit, now it's a boss, right? Oh shit, boss fight with the bear, but I haven't even saved or anything, or or not saved really, but like have less healing because of the rats and stuff. But I'm fighting this thing now, and I fight the bear, and it's a great fight, and I beat it, and oh shit, he drops like a weapon or a medallion or some piece of equipment that's important
I
or
was like,
that's good, that's gonna help me later, but it doesn't even matter
he
because
drops
just
a weapon? I was like, why didn't
well,
the bear just use the weapon?
I think there was a dead guy in the cave with the bear, and that dead guy
Oh.
had the weapon. Yeah.
Maybe you just
Uh
cut the sword out of him or something.
Oh, right. But then that's it, and then from there I find a more cave area that goes back up, and okay, now I'm out, But it was like such a immersive, cool, like fantasy horror experience, of like falling in the trap, having to fight the rats in the dark, struggling between the torch and the shield,
It's not
the
too far from reality. It's a pretty good fear to have.
like games aren't this immersive. It's
Mm.
crazy. There was another place I was that was like a catacomb, right? I found a catacomb. So this
Ooh.
place was like built, brick walls and stuff, and the lighting is really cool in the catacombs. So I didn't need the torch, but still it was like I'm slowly walking through this cave, or this, not cave, but catacomb that looks so cool with the way that the lights are and all the clutter that's around, and then like skeletons fight you, except I kind of have to but I fight a couple skeletons, but then the skeletons are coming back, just like in Dark Souls, they can actually come back, and I'm like, fuck, I can't fight these guys, so I have to run away from them. And then I run into there's some booby traps, like a floor. There was a room that when I walked in, the floor started rising, and I saw that there's spikes on the ceiling. So I'd
Yeah.
like really quickly, figure out like, whoa, shit, where can I go, or to get out of this, and
Guillermo
and
del
it's
Toro had a part in this, right?
no,
He
no,
didn't?
you might George R. Martin
George R.
did
R.
though.
Martin, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um
there's like the famous writer involved in this. I wanted to say.
Yeah, I'll get into that in a second.
All right.
But yeah, I just like all of these different experiences in the game. It's like I feel like I'm playing a game that people have been dreaming about for years. You know what I mean?
Really?
Like when we first saw it's like, okay, when a game like Dark Souls is given a trailer by a big studio, I feel like Elden Ring is the game that the trailer wants you to think the game is gonna be like.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like super immersive and super just like adventure, like the sense of adventure, and fright and stuff when you find these things, and you either fall into these traps or just like discover all of these things. I've never played a game quite like it before. Just stuff like, when you run out into a passing and there's just like a giant, walking through the area, and you're like, I'm not going anywhere near that guy, you know what I mean? But
Skyrim vibes.
he's just doing that, that's what he's doing. And
That's what he does.
but that happens a lot, right? There's like a whole class of, giants. Yeah, it's really, really good.
What's like the universe like? Cause okay, so Bloodborne isn't that like a plague kind of universe where it's kind of takes after a lot of medieval Europe going through the bubonic plague. Dark Souls is just kind of like, medieval, I guess.
Yeah, Bloodborne is more like Victorian.
Victoria, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, with like and so that one has like a big like werewolfy, vampire-y, that kind of vibe to it.
Hmm.
While yeah, Dark Souls is more like more basic dark fantasy. I tend to like, so yeah, this gets into the George R. R. Martin thing a little bit, where the thing that I've noticed about Elden Ring story-wise so far, and I'm not very far into the story at all because I've just been adventuring, right? But one thing I've noticed is, and I gotta blame George R. R. Martin for this, I feel like, but it's very heavy on terminology, I've noticed, which is, I think, as opposed to the other games. The
Terminology
other
how?
so the other games have some stuff to them, like what is the dark sign in Dark Souls, and the chosen undead, and ring the bells of awakening. You hear some terminology like that, or like Bloodborne starts off kind of using it as a mystery, where they say like seek the pale blood to transcend the hunt, and you're like, hey, what the fuck are those two things? You know what I mean? Um but that's it. You're right. They give you a little bit. Elden Ring was a little bit more like, I am a maiden, right? And maiden is in capitals, of the two fingers. You will go to the round table hold and become find a great rune to be accepted as a knight, and of the great grace or something, and like it's like all of this shit is capitalized, like it's all like proper nouns, and it's like every conversation I'm having is like eh, they speak in so many proper nouns that it's
Proper
more overwhelming than normal, of
proper
like,
nouns like you mean like thou and they and all that shit? Not
No,
they.
I mean like capitalized things. Like when
Oh.
they say the tarnished, it's a capital T, right? Because they're referring to like they're not just using the word
Oh.
tarnished, they're saying it's the tarnished. It's a
Okay.
specific
Gotcha.
thing.
Proper noun.
Right. Yeah. And it's like everything is really bogged down in terminology like that. And so it's a little more overwhelming than normal. So it came off the story so far came off a little bit more bloated than usual, I think. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. The things they're talking about sound really cool and stuff. I'm just not used to that much of that kind of stuff. Um, and being, I'm only assuming that that was a bit of George R. R. Martin's influence, where it's like he established all of these things and now they're using all of those things in the story, right?
Kinda,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Where it's
But
just like what's the cold ones or whatever in Game of Thrones?
I've never seen Game of Thrones.
God, me either. And I'm glad that we both can bond on that because I have very little interest in it either.
Right. So honestly, like when they came up with Elden Ring, oh, George R. R. Martin's helping. My reaction was like, uh-oh. It was my first thought because like
Oh
the thing
no.
is Dark Souls already has such a cool world and they tell such cool stories, that it's like why do we want to bring in like some star power to help them make a new setting? FromSoft has the best worlds and they tell such cool stories. They don't need this other guy. But
Well, who
from
made the push? Do you know?
yeah, I don't know,
Because
but
like they
from
could just be huge fans of George R. R. Martin, and
yeah,
maybe it'd just
yeah,
be cool to collaborate.
right, and from what I heard in like press releases or whatnot, I mean, it sounds like his involvement was pretty minimal. It was pretty early on, kind of like setting kind of stuff more so than like what's the actual plot or that kind of thing. But I'm not even sure about that. What I can tell you so far is that it doesn't feel like it's one thing that I worried about a little bit was that we were going to get like a lot more dialogue in general and a lot more like open worldy kind of game feeling where it's like now all of a sudden there's all this dialogue with all these characters, like they were going to try to do a more traditional storytelling type with the outside writer. But thankfully, that has not been the case. It still feels very Soulsy, where you're running around and you just find a person every now and then, and they speak pretty realistically about like their position that they're in. Um, but yeah, they do. There is a little bit more to it,
Are there
though.
recurring characters in these series, or like the universes are they totally separate? Because like one of the things I think of is like when I started streaming Dark Souls, like I had our buddy Melon in the chat was like everyone identified this one character in the very beginning who was dying. Like they knew his name, I didn't know his name, and I'm like, wait, this is the first Dark Souls game. Did this come from Shadow Tower or Kingsfield or whatever? I wasn't sure. Or maybe like
oh,
maybe there's like a prequel or series or something that happens in 2 or 3 that I'm unaware of. But I was wondering if like the characters are contiguous to the actual games or like if it's totally separate universes.
They are totally separate. There are definitely a lot of hints and clues to like tie them together. Like so one thing I'll say is so Demon Souls is one thing, and then I think officially if you ask them, they'll say that Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 are a universe that is separate from Demon Souls, right? Like Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, those are direct sequels and they are in the same universe, right? However, they do take place in totally different places and totally different times. You know what I mean? So like you don't actually see the same characters in them unless it's something that's like a great heirloom, that survived all this time and distance. You know what I mean?
Huh.
Like the Moonlight Greatsword, for example, would be something that is like, well, it survived all this time,
Kind of like
and
I keep making this distinction, and I'm not sure why, but kind of like how Elder Scrolls is all the same universe, but it's all separated by era, kind of.
yeah, yeah, like that. Uh, you know, I do think I feel like there's some stuff in the games though that does kind of tie even Demon Souls in and Bloodborne in and stuff. I just don't know if they can legally do that because they're owned by different companies and stuff, you know. But I think that there's a lot of winks and nudges to all of them being connected, more than just Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 are. But anyway, though, so the official answer though is that nah, they're, you know, they're all their own thing. So the other thing with Elden Ring right now is that the combat is taking a bit of getting used to because I mentioned that it sort of bridges the gap between Sekiro and Dark Souls, and the reason I say that is because there's a much greater emphasis on breaking your enemy's posture in Elden Ring. In Dark Souls, that's always been a thing you can do, but there's a greater emphasis on like, in Sekiro, that's, like, what the whole game was about, you know? An enemy had a health bar and they had a posture bar, and if you could break their posture,
A
you
posture
could instant
bar?
kill them. Yeah.
Like it's like a okay, so when I think about that, I think about like in a fighting game how you'll have like a guard bar where if you block for so many hits, you're gonna have like a meter that just goes down and it eventually breaks your guard. Is it something like that, or is it
Yes.
okay?
And when that happens, like, when you break the enemy's guard, you can instant kill them. In
Oh,
Sekiro, this is.
okay.
And that actually becomes what the game is all about, because the other thing about Sekiro is that, the lower the enemy's health is, the slower their posture recovers. So it sort
Hmm.
of becomes a thing
Almost
where
like a
it's
stamina
like,
bar.
yeah. So in Sekiro, the whole flow becomes when you hit the enemy, if they block it, you do posture damage to them. If they don't block it, you do health and posture damage to them, you know?
Huh.
Um, and then when they attack you, you can block it, but if you parry it by blocking at the right time, that does posture damage to them when they're attacking, right? So the whole flow of Sekiro becomes like you do as much posture to them, damage to them as you can, but also you're trying to get hits in to lower their health because if you lower their health, then their posture will recover more slowly. And eventually, once they get like, you know, a third down on health or something, if you're playing well enough, you'll break their posture at that point and just instant kill them, you
And so
know?
you're saying in
Um,
Sekiro and in Elden Ring, this is kind of more of a prominent feature.
So in Elden Ring, they don't have a posture bar like they did in Sekiro, but there are more you know, it's more like in Dark Souls there was posture as well. Like if an enemy was blocking you and you just kept hitting their shield or something, eventually they would fall back, you know. It's just that's more prominent in Sekiro because or sorry, that's more prominent in Elden Ring because they give you more tools that break the enemy's posture. So it's yeah.
I feel like I'd
So
have
it's
to try this because this sounds like one of those things that it's like a million things that happen in a small amount of time, and
yeah.
it would be very up to like the game whether or not it wants to hold my attention span with that, or if like, do I just want to spam square every time, or do I want to just like, actually figure out, okay, all right, he broke his posture or something from that angle, therefore I have to like crouch roll this way, and then I can get a backstab in this way, or is like how involved is it in the process? Is it a pain in the ass to deal with?
I think it's more complicated, but it feels really good when you use it properly. So let me put it to you this way. I'm fighting a boss, right? And he attacks me, and then he leaves openings where I can attack him. But not many openings, but you know, and I do a little bit of damage when I hit him, right? Now when he attacks you, you can dodge roll or you can block it with your shield, right? But you can only block so many hits with your shield because it reduces your stamina, right? And that's fine. That's how Dark Souls works. You know, you dodge the enemy and then you hit them when they're not hitting you.
And that's kind of
Uh,
why I kind of got bored with Dark Souls, like at least visually and watching people play it and trying it myself, because it just felt like an endless cycle of roll stab,
right. So you can play Dark Souls that way. But so Elden Ring adds more emphasis on your poise basically, or your posture, to where you have more tools where if you break your enemy's poise, they drop to their knee, and then you can get like like a riposte style super attack on them, you know?
Oh.
And the way that you break their posture is by either, doing, like, a jumping attack on them. So, like, you really have to, like, look for a good opening to
Mhm.
give them one of those without getting hit, or they added a new this is the newest feature, which is that if you do a power attack right after blocking an attack with your shield, it does a lot of posture damage.
Mm.
It's called, like, a guard counter or something like
Yeah.
that. But the thing is, you can't just do them willy-nilly, because the enemies will you'll block one hit, and then you'll do your power attack, and then you're out of stamina, you know, because, like, it
You
takes
just
a
did your
lot of
power
stamina
hit,
to
yeah.
block a hit and then do a power hit, yeah.
Oh, it takes
Or
stamina to block a hit too. That makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
And then or also, like, sometimes the enemy just has a fast combo where they'll just hit you with their next attack before your attack hits them, or that kinda thing.
But the
So
main
it's
goal
sort of
is to like get them to break their posture where they do this kneeling stance, right? And then you can kind of do a
yeah.
special finisher.
Yeah, so, like, the play-by-play becomes this thing where, like, you have to recognize that when like, you should probably dodge roll certain attacks still because they follow them up quickly or that kinda thing, but then there's certain attacks that they have more of an opening after they do, and so you specifically wanna shield block those so that then you can guard counter, right? And if you pull enough of them off or use enough power attacks, you know, then you get these big bursts of damage, and it feels really good to pull it off. You can just play it like Dark Souls still, where you can just two-hand your weapon, take off all your armor, roll through all the attacks and hit them. But, like, this other way is really involved and pretty cool, and is probably faster also, because of the bursts of damage that you get, you know? So
So
yeah.
when you do that guard break thing, like when you break their posture, do you get some kind of bonus? Is there like some kind of special kill? Do you take your chainsaw attachment and cut them from torso to head, shoulder, and you get a bunch of ammunition?
It's basically exactly like when you parry an enemy in Dark Souls. Uh,
Have you ever
which
parried in Soul Calibur before? I don't know how much you've played Soul Calibur.
No.
Okay, so at least in Soul Calibur 2, the parry mechanic was at least with some, well, it was pretty much universal. Your character would attack with like a vertical, so like okay, so Soul Calibur, your square is like horizontal, just like slashes, and your triangle is your up and downs. And then like no matter what you do with a parry, it does this bright shining like this like they really emphasize like the sheen on the metal and the ring of the swords like going in two different directions and then you go a certain way, and it's the most satisfying fucking parry mechanic in the game or in any game I've played
Ah.
dealing with weapons. But like in what you're talking about, you're not necessarily talking about parrying though, right?
No, I think that the word parry is technically not exactly right.
Mm.
In Dark Souls, a parry is when you bash their weapon with your shield as they attack,
Yeah,
right?
I remember being bugged by that
Yeah.
because it's a shield
So
bash, right?
right, yeah. Right. A parry, I think, like, very, very strictly is when you block your enemy's weapon with your weapon. But
Specifically redirecting the force of their attack with your counterattack, I think, is what a parry really is.
yeah, so in Souls games, parry means when the enemy is attacking you, you time a shield bash to
Yeah,
hit their weapon out of the way, and it makes this oh man, as far as satisfying
it
parries go,
is.
it makes this doo sound when you do it, and it's like the sound of fucking doom for your enemy, you know, because then you get a special animation, very powerful attack on
They
them.
get the red fiery stun
Um,
icon above their head, or the blue
it,
fiery stun icon.
So, in what is the blue fiery stun icon?
Doom?
In Doom?
Wait a minute. Pretty sure it's when you when you knock an enemy unconscious and they're ready for a glory kill in Doom, they have that icon above their head.
Oh, okay. Are you specifically talking about Doom Eternal? Or
2016 at least.
oh, I thought they had like a whole glow, like the whole enemy
Oh
glowed,
yeah, they do,
and
but
it was
like I'm
really
thinking
kind
of
of
the
stupid
icon.
looking. Oh, I don't even remember an icon. I just remember the big
I,
dumb glow.
I also might be remembering something else because I've been playing a lot of Warhammer 40k Space Marine lately. And
Okay.
when an enemy uses a stim pack, the icon that shows above your head looks exactly like the Doom 2016 glory kill icon thing. To me, in
Okay.
my head,
Oh,
anyway.
gotcha. Well, anyway, so basically, that's like the whole posture thing is like a more of a gameplay change from Souls games, and I guess my whole reason to bring it up is just the fact that like this game, it looks like it's the closest thing to a Souls game, or that it's much well, it's much closer to Souls than it is Sekiro, right? It looks
Is
a lot more
Sekiro
like
not
Dark
Souls?
Souls. I mean, so it's definitely a FromSoft game, right? And it has a lot of soulsiness to it, right? Where like I would say, yeah, it's a Souls game. I think Sekiro is, yes. But it does do a lot of things different, you know. For example, you don't have stamina in Sekiro. You can sprint infinitely, you can block infinitely, you just have the posture to worry about instead, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, it's different. But my point though is that like, so yeah, so Sekiro is a pretty big departure, even though it was still close enough. It was very different, and but a lot of the things that it did differently, Elden Ring feels like it's like the things that Sekiro did differently, they brought those into Dark Souls. Now you have Elden
What's
Ring.
the story like
Plus,
for Elden
also, it's
Ring?
like Breath of the Wild. The
Wh-
story, honestly, I have not gotten far enough in it to know anything about the story yet.
Damn.
You are a tarnished. Let me try to remember. You're a tarnished. There's something about the two fingers. Something about maidens
You
and
have
like
no maidens. That's all I've
uh
seen.
that is what it is. Yeah, you're maidenless. Um and you there's five badasses in the world that you're probably gonna have to fight um to do something.
Do
I
you play a
really
knight?
don't.
You look like you play a knight.
Well, you're a tarnished, right?
Oh,
Which
okay.
is kind of like a zombie. I don't really know
Huh?
though. I
Oh.
don't even. Well, I only say that because in Dark Souls you're an undead, you know, and this seems kind of similar to that,
Hmm.
but I'm not actually sure. I really don't know what the story is yet. But that I mean that's basic FromSoft stuff for you too, where a lot of the time in FromSoft games you kind of have no fucking clue what's happening until like you play through it a second time or watch a bunch of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Uh but yeah, um you know, I've just been doing a whole bunch of side stuff. Yeah, there was one more very important element I wanted to bring up. I don't exactly.
So okay, like what's the universe like? You start off as a tarnish. What does that mean? You're this knight dude, and what's the goal?
Well, that's what I was telling you is that so they introduced these five like super badasses, and I think I have to kill them, but I don't even remember anymore. Dude, I'm so caught up in this in the exploration that I forgot what the game is about because the gameplay is too good.
Damn.
You know what I mean? And like and you know, I talk about like plot and motivation being so important in games, but it's because right now I'm motivated by a boss I want to be able to beat, you know? I don't even know who he is. Right? But like the gameplay is so good that that my motivation is I want to beat the boss, you know?
I'm gonna bring it
Um
back to Elder Scrolls here. This sounds a lot like me when I first. I to this day I have not beaten Oblivion, but Oblivion was the game that got me to go. All right, Elder Scrolls is a thing I'm into now because I tried Morrowind before that, and I bought the Game of the Year edition for Xbox, which was really buggy and crashed all the time, and I gave up because of the stupid fucking like cliff racers. Anyway, but this game, Oblivion, I didn't even care about the plot. I was so enamored by this may date me a little bit. How good the fucking graphics were. I was mind blown by like the ability that I could just explore a forest in any like open world sense. Like holy shit. I saw pictures of the game in a magazine. There was like a chapel just in the countryside, and I was like, video games are never going to look better than this. And now, of
Mhm.
course, you look back at Oblivion now, you're like, what the fuck was you talking about? But when I was in it, I couldn't care about the story at all. Like, yeah, it was cool. There was demon portals and shit opening up everywhere, but like, I wanted to just be in Tamriel. I just wanted to explore the countryside.
Yeah, and that's totally where I'm at with this game right now, is I'm soaking in all of, like, the visual, like, environmental storytelling of what the world is like, you know? But as far as, like, what the plot is, I've totally lost track. Um, but yeah, and so kind of the last thing I wanted to bring up is that, in the exploration of the open world, one thing I've noticed is that FromSoft is very have you ever played a game and you were like, "Didn't they test this game and realize that this is a huge pain in the ass?" You
Sonic
know?
06
This game feels like they did test it and listened to every piece of feedback from the
from
testers,
the
and
QA
it's
team.
just yeah, and it's just a real joy to play, like, as far as the way that it constantly the controls, how they feel is so good. Because one thing that Souls games have always been a little silly with is the idea of jumping and, like, traversing, like, across gaps or up and down and that kinda thing, you know what I mean? Like, FromSoft games have always felt good well, and when I say FromSoft games, what I mean is Miyazaki FromSoft games. Um, they've
Miyazaki,
always
what other games has he done with FromSoft?
well, he started with Demon Souls, right? Well, he started with something else
Is
that
he the
nobody cared
Souls
about.
guy? Like, is
Yeah.
okay. So I wouldn't have
Yeah.
anything to relate to him if I didn't play a Souls game before.
Yeah, because like, he started out working on something with FromSoft, you know, he got a job there doing something, right? But he was really interested in, like, medieval fantasy, right? And he was hearing about this Kingsfield, reboot project that was going on, but apparently it wasn't going very well, you know? And he was like, that sounds cool, I like fantasy," you know? And then, very briefly, the story goes that after he did like a good job with his project that they gave him, uh, he really wanted to direct or get control of the failing Kingsfield project, and they were like, all right, yeah, sure, that project is like dead in the water right now, so go ahead, take over, right? And then he took it and made it into Demon Souls, and then Demon Souls came out, and it's the best thing ever, right? And then he directed Dark Souls, and holy shit, now they've exploded, and now he's actually the president of FromSoft, I think.
Oh wow,
So yeah, huge like
that's a
in
ladder.
yeah, and which I got is just something that I really like too, just the way that like that means that company is now operated by somebody who, you know, was at the lowest level at one point,
Yeah.
and worked up through success, and being the man, who has the ideas, right? And so, uh, where the hell was I going with this? Um, I just think it probably speaks a lot to the quality of their games that the guy who's running the company knows how to make a game, knows how to design a game, and is still designing them and that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Nintendo's
Um,
been doing that for a while, I think. Like
yeah,
Shigeru Miyamoto has been upper Nintendo for the longest time now.
right. So anyway though, so what I was saying is that the Miyazaki FromSoft games have always felt pretty good the way that you move around for the most part. Because like they're games that prioritize your controls over the animation, you know what I mean? Like when you climb something in Assassin's Creed or Uncharted or something, it's very rigid, and the game really wants the animation of the character to look good, sometimes at the expense of your controls, you know what I mean? It's why like sometimes you try to turn your character around and they make this really wide turn, because it's like they want the animation of the character to look realistic, right? And Souls games haven't really done that, right? You
Thinking like
just
Nathan Drake's arm stretching on like fucking Dalsum levels of length to actually reach a yellow brick
well, I don't know. I'm just
in
saying that like
Uncharted.
when you try to do like when you try to like take cover or turn, like make tight turns and that kind of stuff. The game like prioritizes it looking good, and that makes it feel more sluggish. But Souls games have never really done that, right? They you know, when they have to look a little silly, they just look a little silly for the gameplay to feel good. However, where they get a little wonky is with like falling off of ledges and stuff like that. Like when you get close to a ledge and it's almost like Castlevania 1 where you just drop like a sack of shit off the
Oh,
side of the edges, you know,
like
and
the
stuff like
block
that.
that you're standing on is actually a triangle.
Yeah, yeah, you know, Souls games have they've done that a little bit, you know, or like there's never really been until Sekiro a proper jump button. It's more just like a dodge roll that has a little bit more distance to it, you know? And so like jumping over gaps in Souls games has always been really weird even though they always expect you to do it, you know?
Terrifying, actually, because if you're not
Yeah.
used to it, you always dive right the fuck off.
Right, right. So Elden Ring has a jump button like Sekiro did. They just added a proper jump to it, but it feels really good.
Oh,
Like in this game, the slipping off of edges and that kind of stuff is just gone. That's not an issue anymore. And the world is constructed with a lot more ability to where there's like a lot of little platforms that kind of make steps up rocks and stuff, you know? Because like as you're exploring, you're in a more open environment. So there might be a path that goes up a cliff, or the cliff itself has a bunch of rocks and stuff that you can kind of jump and climb up. And it sounds so basic to say. It's just really refreshing in a FromSoft game. Because of the way that things have been so slippery in the past, like I was saying, it feels really nice to be able to just jump up these rocks and like it feels very good and solid and fluid, and it looks a little silly, but that's because they don't care so much. Oh my god, I was playing Tomb Raider for the first time the other day, and it's like when you press the
wait,
jump
which one?
button, the first one for
Okay,
PS1. When you press the jump button for as you're running forward, she doesn't just jump. She like the game
leaps.
has the game has to wait until she plants her next foot down so that she can jump off of her foot. You know what I mean? So it looks good. And that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about where it's like the animation is prioritized in a way that makes the
Yeah,
controls clunky and
gotcha.
sluggish, you know what I mean? And Elden Ring, it's really nice that it's just like the jumping looks a little silly maybe, but it feels really good.
How does it look
And
silly?
just cause you know, it's just a dude jumping around. You know, I don't know.
So
Um
you're just judging the fact that a guy's jumping in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, you know, he's doing a running animation and now all of a sudden it's a hoot, you know, jump off both of his legs, you know, whatever, you know. But the thing that's really nice about this though also is that it extends to the horseback riding cuz it sounds funny to just say, "Oh wow, from you know, it makes it sound shitty, the Souls games to say like, "Wow, FromSoft finally made just the walking around feel good." Um but I really specifically though, I mean the jumping. But what's funny is that so they made the jumping feel really good, but at the same time, they also made the horseback riding feel better than any other game that I've rode a horse in.
Better than Barbie Wild Horse Adventure? Cause
I haven't played that one,
okay.
but
We'll talk.
here's the thing. When I think about riding a horse in a video game, I think of it as like a giant pain in the ass that's barely worth it.
Oh.
Because like they refuse to run into walls, they refuse to get anywhere near ledges, you
How
know, and that
dare
kind of
they?
thing. You know what I'm talking
This
about
living
though?
creature having a sense of self-preservation? Fuck
Yeah,
them.
in my video game,
Oh.
dude. Like, here's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You're trying to ride a horse in a game, and it keeps stopping dead in its fucking tracks because there's a ledge nearby somewhere that it doesn't want to run off of. And you're like, okay, let me just. And it's a big pain to fucking turn the thing over because, again, the animation's got to look really good of the horse. So he's got to pull the fucking what do you call the reins? The reins. You got to pull the reins to pull the horse's head sideways so it can slowly turn, and then we got to slowly kick up speed to get back up to but now it's stopping again because you turned too much, and there's a thing over there, and it's like suddenly it's like, god damn, I would have gotten there faster on foot because of this stupid horse, right? Or like also, oh man, but in Elden Ring, when you're riding a horse, it just feels like the character, but is faster. It just feels so good. Like you just push a direction on the stick and the horse starts running in that direction. And get this, here's the other thing about horses in video games is that ever since fucking Ocarina of Time, you can never tell your horse to jump, can you? Right? They always have to jump on their own. So it's like, all right, I'm going to start running fucking full speed at this wall, just hoping that the horse is going to jump over it because it's going to decide to, because that's how they made the video game, because every video game does it this way. Nah, in Elden Ring, you have a jump button on your horse. Your horse can even fucking double jump, dude. That's how good it is.
What the fuck?
So, yeah, dude, it's great. Also, it's a spectral horse, so you just it works like a mount in an MMO, where it just appears when you want it, It's like, I want to get on my horse now. Boop, I'm on my horse now. I want to get off. Boop, horse disappears. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of not preserving real kind of animations here for the sake of actually just, good gameplay, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yes. The horse feels so smooth and so fluid. It's so good. I love it. Even the combat on the horse feels good. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you can it's fun, dude. Like, and this is another part of the immersion and what I'm talking about, where it's like, remember what game trailers want us to think that games are like before we play them, It's like, this is the game that actually plays that way, where it's like, here's a dude with a sword and a shield, but if I'm on my horse, I can just like run in circles around him, and just hit him from the horse, and he's like turning around all confused. He doesn't know what the fuck to do because I keep running past him on a horse and getting him, It's awesome. And
You're playing the game that Tom Du Bois's artwork on the front of your NES cartridge is like, and it's exactly like the painting, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like, so I just can't stress it enough. Like, when you're playing the game, the controls and the gameplay is so smooth and fluid.
I hope
It's
his name is Tom Du Bois. Sorry, I'm sure I just fucked up his name, but Du Bois is what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, let me just like sum it all up to say that like the controls, it's the Dark Souls game that we all love already, plus extra fluidity and niceness to the controls. Like, it feels extra good, better than ever, right? Plus there's horseback shit that feels really good. So like it all just is very. Oh, also, you can fast travel to any bonfire from anywhere. You actually have a map because there's an open world that's new to Dark Souls, right? You can just open a map, and from the map you can just go to any bonfire, right? And this is the kind of thing I mean when I say like it's like the testers said the game should be a certain way and they made it that way, right? Um, Also, weapon durability is gone. There's no such thing as
Thank
weapon
God.
durability in this
Fuck, I
game.
hate weapon durability.
I don't like it when it's done wrong, and almost every game does it
It's
wrong.
done wrong when it's included in the game. Fuck that.
Specifically, my least favorite thing is like how Dark Souls does it, where it's like, here's your sword, here's all the stats for it. By the way, it's got 30 durability. What does that mean? It means that after like 4 hours, this thing is going to randomly break and screw you if you don't remember to repair it every time you sit down. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's no point to that. It's pointless to have to repair your equipment if it's going to take like 4 hours for it to break. You know what I mean? Uh,
Just like
uh,
World of Warcraft, just like you said a second ago, talking about the mounts being like the World of Warcraft mounts. World of Warcraft mounts, you're just you as the player are the mount. Your movement speed is just increased because it's just a buff spell with an animation and a model thrown in.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Instead of like Oblivion or Skyrim, where if you're horseback and you jump, you kind of have to wait a couple seconds for the horse to go. Oh, okay, here's where we're jumping. and then you
Yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of follow. You're literally on along for the ride.
Totally. So it's got all this gameplay shit that I really like, where it's just a joy to play, but then at the same time, the atmosphere is so good, where like the variety of shit that you run into as you just walk around is insane, you know? Like you're walking around and it's like all of the different types of areas that you're in, all of the different types of like monsters that you're seeing and running into and interacting with are all so different and interesting, right? And then like, I got to one area that was like I had well, I left right away because it was intimidating, but like it was a complete departure from the area that I was in already, as far as what it looked like. And then I got to another place that was also a total departure from everywhere that I've seen so far
Kind of like how World of
visually.
Warcraft is like a patchwork map of different colors, and you instantly
Yeah.
know you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, yeah. And so and then yeah, when you get into those actual dungeons, like the catacombs and caves that I mentioned, but there's also like a castle level, right? Like where you're going through a castle and going from room to room and just like the atmosphere and the little moment to moment gameplay of these places is so good as well. There was this time where this like this ugly fucking I don't even know what to describe him as. It was like like a feathery
A leper.
flying gremlin thing, right? It was flying. It was the first flying enemy that I've seen, and he was flying and like shooting a bow at me. I was like, this motherfucker. I barely have any range stuff. I haven't been doing much range stuff, but he's so annoying, right? And we're on the top of a castle, and so eventually I was like, wait a second, there's a jump button. So I just ran at him and jumped and hit him, and it actually worked. Like I was getting so annoyed by him shooting this shit at me. Also, he's shooting feathers at me, you know? Like straight feathers, and the quill of a feather, is that what you call it? The part that
The
sticks into
pointy
the
part.
bird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pointy part. That's like the point of his arrows. He's shooting these things at me. So I have these like big fucking feathers sticking out of me, and I'm like, oh, this motherfucker, right? So I just jumped straight at him and hit him with my sword, and he went flying. Like he went over the wall of the castle and fell all the way down and died. And I was like, "Oh my god, that was so perfect." Like it was just like the ultimate retribution,
I'm just imagining a
Um
pissed off Dash covered in feathers.
Right, yeah, because like all the other enemies weren't flying, but they were the same type of dude, and they're really hard and they're already annoying. Because like they do this thing where like you hit them twice and then they do like a counter attack, and it was super annoying because I kept getting hit by it. So I was already annoyed by these enemies, and then like this flying one was just so annoying, right? So just the act of jumping at him and hitting him and it working so spectacularly was just like, ooh, I love those moments. But then the other thing about it though, speaking of, I wanted just to talk about the gameplay element before, was that I realized, oh, you hit these guys twice, then you block so that they hit your shield with their counterattack, and then you do that fucking guard counter on them. And it's all I get it now, you know what I mean? And like, oh, the
Big
combat is
brain
so
shit.
good. So yeah, basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that, everybody giving this game a 10 out of 10, like, I get it. It's this is like some next gen fucking shit, this
Do you
game,
recommend it on a specific platform?
That's a really good question, because a lot of the discussion about it right now has been how the PC version is not running super hot.
I've heard that.
I definitely get, so I'm running on PC. I have a 2070 Super
Nice.
is my GPU, and then my CPU is a bit older. It's an i7 like 4900K or
Your
something.
specs are so much better than my streaming machine.
Well, what I'll say under those specs is that it hitches. The when I'm indoors, the game runs perfectly like a dream. When I'm in the open world, it runs mostly fine. There are frame hiccups every now and then sometimes if I'm sprinting around, every once in a while, it will drop to 30 FPS or so for like a half a second, right? Which sounds like nothing, but it's like it's really noticeable when it happens. You know,
I'm
it's
so
like
I'm so spoiled now that 30 frames a second is trash, man. I hate
yeah,
it.
so, right, right, and the thing is, like, when you're zooming around at 60 minus a couple frame hitches here and there, and then, like, yeah, it goes to 30 for, like, a half a second, it feels pukey for a half a second, you know, and you're just like, "Ooh," right, and then you're back, right,
And
and
this
it's
is
like,
on
oh,
PC or
why is
PS5?
that happening?" This is on PC.
Okay.
I haven't heard any issues whatsoever about the PS5 version,
You're playing
so
PS5, aren't you?
no, I'm playing on PC.
Really? Oh,
That's
okay.
why I told you my PC specs.
Yeah, but you have
Uh
to tell me your PC Okay, never mind. Go.
So, so anyway, I'm playing the PC version and it's like I think it's fine, right? I wish it ran a little bit better and I hope that they patch it soon with maybe some improvements or something. Right? It'll be nice when it's better. It'll also be nice 5 years from now when I have a new setup, right? When I've upgraded and then the game runs perfectly, right? Um so that's the thing, but yeah, if you're worried about that, then I would say maybe get the PS5 version.
If you
But
have one.
if you have one, yeah.
Is it
Uh,
out for it's for Xbox too, right?
I just don't know. Yeah, it's gotta be
Yeah.
because the PC version is giving me Xbox button prompts, so
Okay.
I can only imagine it's on Xbox, but I just don't know anything about Xbox.
I hate that too. Man, that's one thing that bugs me about PC gaming is if I have a controller in, especially my fight stick, man. My fight stick um came notated with Xbox and PlayStation 4, just PlayStation controls. In the overlay, obviously I changed the overlay for different artwork, but like whenever I'm playing a game on PC, like fighting game wise, it's almost always on PC. It'll give me Xbox notation, so it's like
Yep.
X A B. What the fuck is that? When I'm wondering already which ones are square, X, and triangle. It's like
Yeah.
I hate the whole X Y A B thing because it's so convoluted now with the Switch and all that shit.
Yeah, so Death Stranding on PC and Persona 4 Golden on PC have an option in the options that say, what would you like the control layout to be displayed as, right?
Mm,
And it lets you choose PlayStation style or ABXY style, or even in the case of Persona 4 Golden, Switch style. It lets you just pick.
wow,
And every PC game should do that. Just let us pick, you know? So
I
yeah.
agree. Yeah.
But there you go. Yeah, I mean this Elden Ring it's some shit, dude. Like it's I I really think that this is like the game that like it's like when people say that they like open world games and they want games to be open world, I feel like this is kind of the game that like they think they're getting
What
when
do
they
you
say
think
that.
of when you
You know
think
what
of
I mean?
open world?
Well, the cynical side of me thinks, "Oh, it's gonna be the bullshit that I mentioned before, right? It's gonna be Assassin's Creed or Infamous or Horizon where, like, even if the some of the gameplay is fun, just the way that they handle the map and the side objectives and the world design in general, is gonna be boring and stupid, and I'm gonna get really sick of it and never finish it, right? But
There's also a
um,
difference between sandbox and open world, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Because I think
Um,
of sandbox. Well, I know you didn't bring up sandbox, but I'm thinking about it because I was thinking about Grand Theft Auto. I think Grand Theft Auto is a good example of a game that I guess people would call open world, but well, at least in the earlier ones, you don't actually get to explore the open world unless you do certain amounts of plot. like in
yeah.
like in Vice City, you can't even cross that bridge to go to the other second part of the map until you do a certain amount of the plot. And I guess would you call that a sandbox game? I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I guess it's both.
is Elden Ring that kind of way?
Well, it's gated by from what I can tell, if there the one area that I have not been able to get to so far is because I can't beat the boss standing in the way.
Gotcha.
Not because of like a other type of progression.
Yeah.
So actually, So the other open world thing that I worry about, and actually I'm glad you asked this because this was also my other piece of like worry. Remember when I was talking about how Dark Souls is a web earlier?
Yeah.
And I like that because it means that your pathway is always point A to point B as opposed to just like walking straight there. Like the other game that went open world and I really didn't like it was Metal Gear Solid 5, where it's like all of the bases in the game are spread out in an open map, which means like the game's objectives, unlike normal Metal Gear Solid, it's no longer like how do I get from point A to point B through this handcrafted, interestingly designed level that's got guards in it and places I can crawl and that kind of stuff, right? That's fun. But when it's an open world and the base is just in the middle of nowhere, the objective is just going to be get to the middle of the base, right? Because the guy is going to be in there. So he's going to be in the middle, right? And I can go in from any angle, which sounds cool to sell to somebody. You can go
Yeah.
in from any direction you want, except all that means is that it's boring
Yeah, I was gonna
because
say
none of
because
them
that
are interesting.
limits the narrative so much. Like it's, on a technical level, if you can approach, okay, like think of it like a first person shooter's perspective. If I was going to approach, say, like a shack, in a Call of Duty level, and like I was walking up to it and I could approach it from any angle. All the windows are like, say you could shoot through the windows, and my objectives inside. I could go at that from every angle possible, but that limits the amount of narrative that the game is allowed to tell you. Because if it's trying to give you the, I guess we could call it bandwidth, to say these are all the range of actions that the player can take right here to interact with this, boss or whatever. Well, then we have to account that the game won't fuck up the camera angle when we engage. So it's like, well, now we have to account for, are we going to teleport the player to here to start this cutscene if there's a cutscene here? Or are we going to have the player outside the shack still when the cutscene initiates? There's a lot of different things that they could avoid problem-wise by just funneling you in a certain direction and then
Yeah.
just have it there.
And then from a gameplay perspective, it really limits the game designer's ability to set forth a specific challenge for the player. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like every room in Metal Gear Solid that you have to run through feels different and has a specific layout of guards and stuff to try to get through, right? But every base in Metal Gear Solid 5 feels exactly the same because they can't direct the player into the challenge, and so all of that is lost. And so I was worried about that with Elden Ring, right? I was worried that that's why I think the web of Dark Souls is so genius, where the game is open and you can go anywhere, but actually getting there is a point A to point B path that the level designers have created to be fun, you know? And Elden Ring might lose that. And it is true that Elden Ring is a lot more just wandering around an open space that has different interesting things, and each interesting thing that you find, you're approaching from a different angle. But it hasn't had that problem to me because just like the atmosphere and the different things that I'm finding are all so cool that it just works. But also there's individual dungeons as well, whenever you do. I mean, there are a lot of areas that funnel in, right? Like a canyon, between two mountains or something. Like there's a thing in there, right? You can only get in there from one direction, right? And so that's going to be more specifically designed. Or just, yeah, the way that they've constructed the world, it does have a lot more like specific pathways for you to go through. And then also there's stuff like the caves, the catacombs, the castles, like I was talking about, where when you're in those places, you're going through in a specific way. So yeah, it's still it solves those problems well enough for me so far.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you're talking about the caverns earlier, I was like, I think about these like TikToks I've been watching of these cavers who just squeeze through entirely way too tight spaces, and
Mhm.
take the camera along the way, and for the cameraman, it's the most hair raising fucking like claustrophobic kind of feeling with it. And I'm just wondering if a cave experience in a video game is meant to narrow the path to the next objective, What would it be like if the cave were obviously? Well, I guess I know the answer. It'd be kind of fucking boring, but I feel like a cave could really play on that kind of fear. Like you could have multiple paths in a cave, but it doesn't go anywhere. And actually, that could be what could play on your fear. It's like you squeeze into the tiniest fucking space and then find out you're upside down, and you can't squeeze, but you have to go back because it's a dead end. If you're like in an area where if you breathe the wrong way, you'll get stuck from being compressed in place. That kind of fear is what I'd love to see in a video game. But I guess for now, we're just using them as plot devices.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. This isn't a caving game as far
Yeah,
as
no,
that
no.
kind of stuff goes.
But I bet if like you were trying to introduce a level of horror into the game, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. But yeah, one thing that I keep thinking about is that, and this is why this is actually specifically why I brought up like the trailer thing. Is that do you remember when Capcom showed a game called Deep Down before
No,
the? I think it was before the PS4 came out.
definitely wouldn't
Before
have then.
Before the PS4 came out, Capcom showed a game called Deep Down that looked a lot like they were going for a Soulsy kind of atmosphere, but it was very atmospheric, like in a cave. And they really wanted you to feel like the dread of the cave, right? Like, oh, the going by torchlight, and there's a dragon at the end of the cave who's shooting fire at you at the end of the trailer, and he's like blocking the fire with the shield, and oh fuck, and it's like deep down, right? Um, and I just feel like this game kind of did it with like the way that it feels to be in the caves in this game,
Did it
and
go to
that go
launch? I've never heard of
um
that game.
no, it never came out.
Oh, okay.
It might have turned into Dragon's Dogma at some point,
Oh,
but I'm not wait, but never mind. Dragon's Dogma was a PS3 game.
I don't know anything about it. I've heard the name though.
Okay, yeah, anyway.
PS3 is an era that I just almost entirely skipped,
Right.
gaming wise.
Well, that's about what I have for Elden Ring because
And you don't
it's
even know the story yet.
that's what I'm saying, dude. It's like, yeah, they established a story where they threw a bunch of fucking terminology at me, and I was like, okay, George, right? And then, and then it was gameplay right after that, right? And the first boss that I ran into, I couldn't beat. So I just started exploring and I'm still exploring. Uh, and yeah,
As long as you're
that's,
having fun doing it.
oh, dude, it's
Why
really,
didn't you go
really
with the
good.
PS5 version though? I'm curious.
I just get games on PC when I can.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I've heard Souls games are like meant to be played with a controller. So it's like
Oh, I'm playing with a controller.
okay. Well, interesting. I mean,
The
are you the kind of person that prefers to own things physically though?
So yeah, that kind of thing is weird. I do like physical copies of things, but um PC is a little different with Steam. I don't know, like something about Steam. I feel like okay, when I think of owning physical media for PC, I think of back when we had like serial numbers and like it was like
Yeah.
you had to put the game
Product
into the
keys.
yeah, and then you had to put the game in and you had to install the game and then the whole game is on your computer, but then you have to have the disc in the system anyway, like just to authenticate that you have it, even though the
Some
files
games
are on
were
your
like that.
computer.
Yeah,
Right.
Battlefield 2 is like that. I fucking
And
hated it.
so yeah, like all that kind of stuff made it so that when Steam came out, it was like, whoa, this is so much easier, It downloads the game and installs it at the same time. It patches it for you. What? Like all of that was so new that I'm
Okay.
just totally bought into the Steam universe as far as PC goes. Um,
But
but
you
then
so you consider Dark Souls or I guess you consider this game a PC game.
yeah, if a game launches like simultaneously on PC and on a next gen or a new gen system, then yeah, it's essentially a PC game, right?
That's an
Because the new
interesting take. I don't know that I agree with that at all.
oh yeah, well the new gen system or the new gen systems also, I mean, they feel like
They're PCs, yeah, for
I,
sure.
let me put it to you this way: Dark Souls was a PS3 game, but can still just play it on PC,
I played
you
on
know?
PS4.
Right. So you'd have to, like, get it on PS well, I have it on PS3 though, so I'd have
Yeah.
to buy it on PS4 to play it on PS4.
Yeah, but
I'd
I'm
have to
saying like if
buy
you
it on PS5 to play it on PS5. But the PC version, you know, it's just good
well,
forever.
okay, so absolutely. If you're talking about the same game,
Yeah.
absolutely. If you want to, if you know that you're going to be playing that same game, then sure, yeah, absolutely. Like I would never buy, for instance, like when I and my girlfriend were playing Overwatch pretty heavily, she also bought it on Switch to play like when she was at work. And that game runs like dog shit on Switch compared to PC. So I was like, why would you ever want to do that? And it's just like, because we have it on PC, it's going to run better. It's like, I understand the use case because it's like for Nintendo Switch, it's a mobile thing. There's a whole other aspect there. But like, if she were to buy it on console as well, I would just be like, what's the point? So for that, I totally get it. But when it comes to something like a Souls game, like a Dark Souls game, where it's like, this is just the established narrative single player mostly game that you're probably going to play, I'd rather just have it in my hands, like it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's for PC. I would not want to buy it on PS4 and then on PS5 if I wanted to play it again. Absolutely. I totally get that. But if I was going to get into a game for the first time, I would buy it for the console if it was available on the console. Only really strong precondition. Only if I knew the console ran it just as well as like the PC could run it. Obviously, PC is always going to run it better, but like if there's a major performance difference, then I'm going to go PC every time because that's just easier to optimize for me.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean,
if the experience is the same, I'm going to want to have it physically every time.
sure. Yeah, and I mean, I totally get that, and, if Steam ever goes down and I lose access to all my Steam games, that will be a gigantic kick in the balls, right? But, oh
Steam is
well.
a much better basket to place your eggs in than the Nintendo eShop. We
Yeah.
noted that. We've noticed that immediately because Steam is always the PC platform. It's never going. There's not going to be a PC too. So
Right.
it's like I think digital game owners. I think Steam's a lot safer to place your bets in. But just in general, I don't know. It feels like a console experience to me. The Dark Souls kind of game.
Yeah, and one thing I could say too is that like if you could get it on PS5 right now, and then when PlayStation 6 comes out, well then the PC version will probably be like $20 or something, right? If you want to play it again, then just get it on PC.
Then it'll release the Game of the Year edition. That's like or the 10-year anniversary edition that has additional content that you can't play if you just have the original game. You have to buy the upgraded edition. Drawing, of course, another parallel to the Elder Scrolls series. Apparently, there is a whole other fucking version of Skyrim out there that I had no idea existed. Because there's like a new HD Skyrim out there that's like the base game. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? And it's like there's DLC I can't play because I don't own the fucking 1.5 version of the game. It's that kind of thing pisses me off. But luckily it's rare for now. So
Yeah. Well, I that's about all I have to say about Elden Ring. I went on for a while about it though, but it's I mean, it's big. It's really good.
it's the bee's
Um
knees.
It's funny because, yeah, like, at first, when I couldn't beat that boss, I was just like I was struggling. I was feeling down because I was like, I'm having trouble getting into this game, because, like, it's just a brick wall, and I was feeling weird about it, like, "Hang on, like, it's just I can't get anywhere," and then I realized, like, "Hang on, this is what the game wants me to
It's
do."
by design.
They want me to go prepare and, "Oh, shit, okay, now I'm super into it, can't get enough of it."
Yep.
Alright.
I wish I could contribute, but I am such a not Souls player.
Mhm.
I'm
So, you played Dark Souls, like, 1 time, what was your experience with
two
it?
times. Going into the hub world, figuring out the combat a little bit better, having a whole lot of fun kiting a lot of enemies to one area, then killing them all in one swoop.
Nice.
Doing that, playing with the physics of knocking people off cliffs. That part was pretty fun when I came back to it. But there's still something about that game that just there's nothing there for me. Like nothing's pulling me through it, you know?
Gotcha.
Nothing's like getting. I guess for me it's weird because like the story is what you said earlier. It's like you're this undead thing, and I guess because there's not a lot there in the beginning, it's just this vague, sad music, and you're in this weird liminal space of a universe of a castle, and everyone's sad, and you're kind of a ghost, and that dude's a ghost, and now ow that hurts a whole lot. Now I'm dead. Well, okay, that's that game, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ever since Demon Souls, yeah, they've always had a very somber, sad, tired atmosphere, you know?
Tired is a really good way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's usually a feeling like the world has been in sort of a stasis for a long time, you know?
After
Like every
something terrible happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything's just kind of dragging out now, you know? And I really I think that's a really neat atmosphere.
I
But
like that only if things are incredibly like things are visually like fucked up. And I don't mean in
mhm.
like a morbid sense. I mean like uh one of the coolest things I thought was playing the shitty ass conquest mode in Mortal Kombat Deception, where they were trying to explain the realms and the like the universe, the hub world in between, and etc. You know, there's Earth realm, Nether realm, etc. Yada yada. There's Chaos realm, there's Order realm. But when you go to Chaos realm, dude, it's like this place is just made of a planet that once collided with something, and you're kind of living in this like Zen from Half-Life, like this asteroid kind of plane. You're living in this like weird thing where there are buildings and there are shapes that don't make sense and like plants that fold and go into the ground, and there's this island over here where gravity doesn't actually happen. And then over here, gravity is super strong, and there's a whole lot to take in about your environment. Those are the ones that I love to explore. Where like this is so fucking beyond weird, I have to know what's going on. If it's
Mhm.
just like this sad cliffside, I'm like, oh, I guess I guess I feel like I'm playing a movie, and I don't feel like the main character, but I'm the main character. You know, it's like there's not a lot. I guess aside from the giant fucking crow, that was pretty cool. You know,
Oh yeah.
I like crows. Crows are cool, and other than that, I was like, what's going on right now?
Yeah, a big part of what's really cool in like Dark Souls 1 is I think all the boss fights, like the enemies that you fight as bosses are all really sweet. Um I,
Bosses that are challenging, and you have to figure out what to do to beat them. Yeah, I see that because that was kind of like the main challenge that everyone was having. Was bosses,
yeah,
right?
and also they look cool. But so I would say you mentioned earlier that you were getting a little sick of like rolling and hitting and then rolling and then hitting. Were you using that shield?
I wasn't rolling and hitting because that's not the kind of way I like to play. I was using a shield and a mace, and I was having fun doing what we were talking about earlier with what they call the parry. That's
Yeah.
satisfying and fun. That's probably
Well,
kept me
all
going
right, there
forward a
you
little
go.
bit.
Good. I'm just
God,
making sure you weren't, like, being bullied into not using a shield, right? Because
oh no,
I
yeah.
think I think the shield and parrying is really fun. So anytime that someone is like, "You're having," because this is the thing about Souls games, is that, like, this is the thing where, like, people have literally told me, "You're having less fun using a shield," you know? And it's, oh, it's just not true. So that's all.
Well, yeah, we got someone in chat talking about what I was talking. I was talking about the Dark Souls series. So I haven't tried Elden Ring. Dash here seems to think Elden Ring's universe is like very much expanding in front of you, and fun stuff to do and lots of stuff to explore. So I don't know. It seems like it might be a Souls game that I might enjoy. I don't know. I just remember when Sekiro came out. You know the game Ghosts of Tsushima?
Mhm.
I thought that Sekiro was that game for the longest time. And I was like,
Mm.
holy shit, this is that badass game that everyone's been talking about. I can't wait to see it. And when I started watching people play Sekiro, I was like, I'm not getting all those cool, like, visual, like, cinematic scenes that the game I thought was going to be had. This doesn't have it. And then I realized Ghost of Tsushima was a totally different game.
Sekiro has tons of awesome cinematic shit in it, though. Like,
Not
all the
from what
bosses
I
look
saw.
alright,
No, I didn't see
alright.
a whole lot of it. I'm not saying it doesn't have it. I'm just saying I didn't. when I saw the gameplay, I was like, oh, like the whole color, even like the what do you call it? Like the contrast of the scenes was totally off. Like it seemed a lot more bland by comparison, color wise.
Interesting. I don't know. Sekiro's amazing.
I haven't played either one, so I can't
oh
really
boy.
judge.
Okay. Well, did you have a topic of your own, or did I take up all of our time here?
No, I've pretty much prepared for this to be all about Elden Ring. I did want to talk about a few Nintendo Direct announcements, but
yeah.
But other than that, I mean, we could talk about that another time because I think we could fill an hour with that too.
Okay, sure. Well, yeah, I think I said my whole thing. I don't think there was anything necessarily that I forgot uh on Elden Ring yet. I think I kind of said it all.
Yeah, a lot to say, and you got to start the story mode soon.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is soon I will do like the first thing I tried to do. I'll get back there, and I'll probably be way over prepared because
It makes me
there.
wonder if like you just particularly had a hard time with that boss, or if like the game was designed to be insanely hard on first boss so that you would look elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I would try him like 3 times, and then I would open up Twitter and just be like, "I'm just gonna scroll through here for like a minute and see like, is anybody else complaining about this fucking boss? That's so hard because it's way too hard, you know." But I never saw it, you know.
Really?
And then yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I did hear one person though when I was one day that I was streaming. Someone was watching someone else playing Elden Ring, and they told me that they were stuck on that boss, but they did beat him after like 3.5 hours of just trying it, you know? Um,
Yeah,
so
especially if you're streaming it, you gotta watch out for backseat gamers, and I guess also people who raid your realm because they'll come fuck with you too, right? In Dark
uh,
Souls.
oh, you're talking about like invaders?
Yeah, like people can invade your realm, like if they stream snipe you.
Oh, yeah. There's ways to mitigate that though.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that could be a thing, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, I do think that it was designed that way, just based on like how little damage my attacks did and that kind
Gotcha.
of stuff. I think it's intentional.
It's not like you're not overlooking like, oh, I was supposed to use a bow that was over there and I never picked it up.
Right. Well, I mean, that could be. I did run straight past the tutorial at the very start.
I
And
like
then
that you can do that.
yeah, and then I went back later because it was like the thing was you started out in a really dark area, you know, and Nicole was watching me play, and I was like, I would love to just stumble around this dark area and try to find a thing, but instead I'm just gonna run for the door, you know. So I ran for the door and I ran straight past the tutorial. Then
Nice.
later, when Nicole wasn't watching and I had found a torch, I went back there, and oh shit, yeah, it's right there, and it's not even like the room was dark so that you would see. It's not like it was hidden by the darkness. The room was dark so that you would see the tutorial, you know,
Oh.
the light next to it, but I didn't. I just saw the door. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I will probably have more to talk about another video game next episode. I'm not exactly sure which one it's going to be yet, but I think I told you, I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast yet, but I've been thinking about possibly getting into speed running and doing something immensely stupid and doing it with a fishing game. Specifically
I think
because
you did mention this.
yeah, I was talking to you about it on your stream where you're talking about how you kind of just like if there's not a game up there, you just kind of submit it. And like you just kind of make your own rules for a run. So I've been thinking about doing that with either real fishing or a game from the Fisherman's Bait series on PS1, just because that's like a childhood game of mine, so I already feel like I have a little bit of leg up on it, and I've never beaten it, and I'd like to see how my actual run can be, and I'll go from how long will it take me to actually beat it to how long can I actually speed run it once I start implementing like strategies to just like well, first you got to lay down the groundwork of how you're going to beat it, right? Because like you got to be like, okay, how many pounds of fish in an hour, or do I want one of every type of fish, that sort of thing, one from every level. There's lots of like things I'm looking into it still, but I think it'll be fun because I feel like there's such an untapped market of like fun in fishing games that people aren't getting, and a lot of fishing games are really shitty though, so you kind of have to sift through the crap.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about speedrunning is that the rules of each category, I mean, it's all arbitrary, right?
Yeah,
It's every single category is unless the game has its own timer in it, that's a little less
sure.
arbitrary. But still like generally, it's just people have decided this is the start and this is the end. Who can do it the fastest, or like and then sometimes you add extra stipulations, like the Final Fantasy VII category that I run is no slots, which is where you can't use Kate Sith has a limit break called slots, and you can't use it. Why not? Because we didn't want to. It's like it's enough
Literally
people.
RNG though, right? That's his fucking limit break that you can break the game.
Well, it's the opposite. You if you press the buttons correctly, you can one shot any boss every time. And so
Oh, makes it too
yeah,
stupid. Okay, gotcha.
right. And so just arbitrarily, people were like, "Well, what would it be like if we didn't do that?"
Yeah,
And then that was decide.
makes it more
That
interesting.
Yeah, and enough people think that's the more popular category now. But point is though that it was originally just an arbitrary decision that was made, and people like it, and so that's what the category is that people run now a lot of the time.
Kind of like how
So,
Magic the Gathering rules can just get developed by a local player base.
oh, like house rules and stuff.
Like house rules, you're not allowed to use Eldrazi, or you can't
Yeah.
use fucking anything with indestructible. Like I never did any of that, but like, dude, some magic tactics were just terrible to deal with.
Man, I always just played like tournament rules essentially.
Oh,
Like
did you
whenever
play?
I Yeah,
Oh,
I
nice.
used to play Magic quite a bit, and basically when I played a casual game, it was the same rules as a regular tournament game. And man, it was funny. Like people would get like upset with me when I didn't want to have there be like the free mulligan. Like everyone had the one free mulligan house rule.
What's that rule?
As like you can mulligan once for free
What's
without
the
having to
okay?
take.
Tell me what your mulligan is, because I don't know if I've done this.
Oh, so really? So when you start Magic, you shuffle your deck and then you draw 7 cards,
Yeah.
right? And if your 7 cards are bad,
Oh, just saying if you have a bad hand, you want to reshuffle. I got you. Okay,
yeah, you
gotcha.
reshuffle. But like back when I started, the tournament rule was you could reshuffle and draw again, but you drew 6 then instead of 7.
Yes, I remember that rule. Okay.
Yeah, but like every house rule was always, well, you get 1 for free. And I
Hmm.
was like, nah, that's not how the game is played, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree. Yeah. Yeah. With the
it's weird now though. It's nowadays it's something that's like I think the newest mulligan rule is you draw 7 every time, but for every time once you have accepted your hand, for every time that you mulliganed, you choose 1 card and put it on the bottom of your deck or something like that. So you
let
still
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you still start with a smaller hand, but it's of a selection of 7 cards. So instead of it being a 6-card hand, it's the best 6 of a 7-card hand, you
I
know what I
gotcha.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's kind of cool that you play Magic. I never knew that you played, because I saw your brother plays a little bit of Arena. I want to say it is on
He
Twitch.
plays Magic Online,
Online.
which
Yeah.
is different from Arena.
Well, dude, okay. So I'm glad I get to tell you about this then. So I saw that, was it Secret Lair? I want to say is the company is doing a crossover with Wizards, to where they're bringing the original like World Warriors cast of Street Fighter as Magic the Gathering legendary creature cards. So
Street Fighter characters?
so Ryu is getting a card, Chun-Li is getting a card, Ken is getting a card, Blanca, Dalsim is getting a card, Guile is getting a card, and Zangief is getting a card.
There's
So,
already a card named Guile.
well, this is Guile of the something charge. Oh man, I gotta bring this up.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm kind of just joking.
okay.
Uh,
Well, dude, like they're actually like, I was reading their abilities, and obviously they're all legendary creatures because they want to make they want to appease the commander deck crowd, where if you play Elder Dragon Highlander, you can choose one of these guys as your champion, and they'll be low cost or high cost. But I was reading through their abilities, and it makes so much fucking sense. Like, you have to be a
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering player and a Street Fighter fan to kind of get how the cards' effects work together. Like, shit. Oh, sorry. I should have. I'm gonna bring this up because I want to get this right. But like Dalsim has an effect where, Magic the Gathering card. Dalsim has an effect where essentially, like in Street Fighter, his effects are his punches. He's just like stretchy, right? He can punch you from a range that nobody else can punch you from. So that's kind of like how his card goes, and even like their colors, like white. He's a 2-drop colorless with a green and a white on top, so 4 drops. So they kind of match his colors with like the kind of disposition of the character and their what you call alignment, I guess. So like, listen to this. It has reach and it has teleport because Dalsim has a teleport ability. But the way teleport works is Dalsim, Pliable Pacifist is his card name, has hexproof unless he's attacking. So essentially, if you cast a spell on him, you don't cast a spell on him. And it's only, I guess, that card that would ever have a teleport mechanic. Like, only Dalsim would have that. Just to fit the card, character. But of course, he also has whenever a creature you control with reach attacks, because he has an ability called reach as well, untap it, and it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power this combat. So basically, he has the ability to hit flying creatures, or if there's no flying creatures to defend, hit your opponent directly. And he has also an ability called Fierce Punch. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So basically, he can hit anything that isn't flying to defend, and if it hits a player, you get a card. And like, the way that they've made it so like you can actually see how this would play in a Magic the Gathering mechanic sense from a fighting game perspective was just like, it was, I don't know. Nerd Knox was nerding out this morning. I was having a
For
good
sure.
time. It made me want to actually build a deck around these guys, and I haven't. I sold all my Magic cards like 5 years ago for some money when all my friends stopped playing. So, but when I saw those, I was thinking about just buying them just to have them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the secret lair stuff, I wanna say, are, like, special printings that I think are designed to be, like, kinda collector kinda
Yeah,
stuff.
probably not
Um,
tournament legal, but house rules. I would let them in.
yeah, I never got into the, like, standard play, which is where, like,
Yeah.
you can only play the new sets and none of the, like, side sets and stuff. I always played Legacy, which was where you could just play any card except for short there's, like, a short list of banned cards, right? But other than that, anything goes. And that had, those kinds of cards in it usually. But I'm not sure if the secret lair stuff extends to that.
This might
I
just
don't
be
know.
me being OCD about the art, but I was actually a bigger fan of the modern format because it was
Mm.
basically Legacy, except all the cards looked uniformly right. and they
Oh, see,
and they
I
also because like you can also have the benefit of additional game development time. So it's standard, but way more flexibility and a way wider card base to choose from without having all the cards that absolutely should be banned. Like Legacy has so many of the old style art that should be banned, but like the stuff that was fine just got reprinted in the modern art style. So like it was a good filter for me.
hmm. Well, you don't confuse legacy with vintage,
Oh,
where
maybe is vintage
so
only the old art?
no, vintage is where actually anything goes, except some cards are restricted, so you can only have one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you get shit like Black Lotus, right?
Yeah.
Is legal, but you can only have one, right? Or like Time Walk, yeah, like that's
Those can be fun if you build a deck specifically for the format, I
Oh
think.
yeah, no, vintage is great. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, as far as like you're saying cards that absolutely should be banned. I don't think Legacy had that problem really. I mean, there's, yeah, I liked it. I liked the power level of Legacy a lot, and also the funny thing about the artwork is that I think that the old card frame looks so much cooler than the new card frame.
I
Um,
will. Okay. So I will agree, but only if every other card in the deck is with it. I think
oh yeah,
just seeing them together pisses me off because
oh yeah.
I actually grew up playing Pokemon first. So I was introduced to the Wizards of the Coast kind of format of the Magic card as we know today, like the modern format. I was introduced to that kind of style of card way before anything else. So that's what looks right to me.
Hmm.
But I went from there to Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just a totally different kind of card entirely. And then went back to Magic. So I was like all aboard with the normal style art that they were doing. But when I see those old style cards, I think what I didn't like the most was the white border cards. Like if they had the black border, they were okay for me.
Yeah, I love all the old borders. I think that the set Tempest, specifically Tempest, is like the best looking set of cards. Not only is it the old card frame, but it was old card frame black border and all of the artwork, man. The artwork is just so good on that set.
Yeah.
Uh yeah. But
Uh,
anyway,
the artwork is like half the reason to get into Magic the Gathering for me, honestly. Like
yeah.
some of the
And
fucking cards.
yeah, I think that's part of the reason that I like old card frames also is because generally the artwork back then was like actual paintings,
Yeah.
while now the art kind of looks more
Digital art.
digital, yeah. Which is fine. It's just the old stuff is cooler.
I- Yes, I agree. But when it came to Pokemon, for some reason, I loved the shitty 3D model CGI
Yeah.
cards the most. Like Hyper Potion was just this big golden piece of shit, like so, like spray bottle of orange juice, some kind of like oh. Shitty, like the seeds. When Gen 2 Pokemon was out, like the nuts that you could attach to like a berry. When Pokemon got the ability to hold an item, like all of those pieces of art were like really shitty 3D work, but like there's something about them that's so charming now.
Yeah, there was some charm to it for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, I definitely prefer like the painted magic artwork.
yeah.
Tempest, man, I tell you, if you're gonna get a card and put it in your deck, if it was printed in Tempest, I guarantee you that's the coolest looking one.
I'm looking at some of the art for the like in the Magic the Gathering, just like catalog here for the Tempest set. It does have a lot of good artwork to it, painting wise.
Hmm. But all right. Yeah,
What are
if
the
you
games you looking forward to soon? Just Elden Ring?
looking forward to?
Anything coming out soon?
I feel like there is, but I've forgotten. My head is just in Elden Ring right now.
There's been a fuck ton of releases for me, but it's all like multiplayer stuff. Like the new KOF has come out, and oh boy, that's a lot to talk about on its own. But fighting games, they're another universe. I'm not sure.
All right.
I'm not sure if you if you would follow, if you'd be interested.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
think
I'm sure.
I think there's gonna be one game. It won't be a fighting game. There's gonna be one game I'm gonna get you playing multiplayer only games with. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but
Well,
I know you'd be really good at them.
I'm sure I'll see it on your stream at some point.
Maybe.
But for today, all right, I think that should about do it, right?
Yep.
All right. Elden Ring, it's really good.
Buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, PS5 I hear is the best way to play it right now. But it'll work its kinks out.
Yeah, I mean, after playing it for a while, I think that the PC version is running fine. Like yeah, there's frame hitches, and it's probably smoother on PS5, but it's not like it's unplayable on PC. I've been finding it to be fine. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's a thing of buy it on PS5 now, and then when you want to play it again in a couple years, get it on Steam sale or something like that.
It'll be better. Yeah, that's the one good thing about PC with Steam is like I can buy it now or I can buy it when it's better later and for probably less money.
Yep.
All right, y'all.
All right.
Yeah, we appreciate y'all tuning in and listening, downloading, and all that shit. I'm Invictus Knox.
I'm Dash.
Peace out.